When I wrote that rescue and rehabilitation of any kind is an act of transformative imagination, I mean, obviously I'm talking explicitly about dogs and rescue dogs, especially dogs who've had a particular, in a way, destiny attached to them, or the German Shepherd, protection dog, hard dog. To imagine that Vincent could have a different life, a different value in the world, a different way of being, to see him literally learn that things he thought were scary are no longer scary, is to see transformative imagination at work. And if I believe all of those things about Vincent, then it means it's true for me too. I don't think I knew until I really started being a dog person, a person who lives her life with dogs, how much it would change my entire life and change, I think, who I was and change how I felt in the world and how I saw the world, and it would change, I think, the possibilities I saw for myself in the world. As a writer, I'm constitutionally prone to just staying inside the house, and Zena really loved being outdoors. And, you know, to have a dog that at, 10 a.m. is like, it's time for our mid-morning walk, bitch. You're like, oh, okay, well, I have to get outside. And that was it was an incredible gift to not just my mental health, but my writing life, my life. And I think so much of being Zena's companion and being a dog's companion for me also was seeing that there was this whole other part of myself that I could develop that had nothing to do with being a writer, that had nothing to do with my work life. And I've been a writer since before I can remember. I mean, I was a big reader as a kid because of my dad. My dad was the one who gave me my first book. So I can't remember a time when I wasn't reading or writing. That's how I identified. And in a way to say, now I kind of feel like, I mean, I don't think it's too bad to be a millennial dog mom. Do you want to see a picture of my dog? Do you have dogs? Do you want to talk about your dog? What kind of dog do you have? I still joke about myself as someone who's like, emotions, what's that? I mean, my favorite movie growing up was Terminator 2, so that's my personal emotional model. I mean, now I'm being flippant. I mean, obviously I have reserves of emotion within me, but I don't think I was as emotionally expressive in the same way, except in my writing, to be honest. I think, I was prepared to be vulnerable and intimate in my writing, much more so than in my life, and much more so than in daily life. And I think loving and being loved by dogs and living alongside dogs, it's impossible not to have a vast emotional life. After Zena passed, and I was fucked up, my partner asked me at some point, tell me the things that you loved about Zena. And I was like, well, I love that she was gentle and stoic and serious and loyal. And I was saying things, and my partner sort of was like, it's funny because you kind of sound like you're describing your dad. And I had never put that connection together, because my dad was much old. My dad was born in 1930, so he was much older than me, and he died when I was 22. And it had never occurred to me that maybe something that I connected with in Zena was that kind of calm, wise. I think, that was another word I used to describe her energy, that she just had this kind of wise warrior princess energy. That's why I called her Zena. It's a cliche at this point to use that Montaigne line about, when people ask me, why did I love him? Parce que c'était lui, parce que c'était moi. Because it was him, because it was me. And that's really why it was. If I could see any of my dead for just an hour, I would pick Zena. And I think my dad would get it, because he's a dog dad. I had heard people saying that shepherds are a hard dog. And the kind of sort of concept, I wouldn't say it's like particularly scientific, but I think the kind of loose way that trainers, and to be honest, a lot of aversive trainers would describe it is that there's some dogs that are, you know, soft, which is to say they would crumble at like aversive, which I mean to me is a euphemism for ultimately a training based in kind of domination and subordination. But German Shepherds are hard dogs, which is to say, you know, they can take an e-collar shock or yanking on the leash and just come back for more. And I relate to that because I was a hard dog too. I was the eldest kid in an immigrant family where you're also doing translation for your parents. You're the first American in the family. You're the first essentially. I mean, I think as someone who has also experienced formative abuse when I was a kid, or at a time where you're forming who you are, I understand the defense mechanism, the carapace you create around yourself to defend yourself. So that kind of kid grows up to be someone who, yeah, puts up a front, prides herself on how much she can bounce back, on her resilience, on hardness rather than softness, on toughness rather than vulnerability, on walls rather than boundaries. And I think living with Vincent, living with a dog who's perceived to be hard, and understanding that he doesn't have to be a hard dog, that if anything he's not just capable of but worthy of softness, I think it was a revelation for me too. And when I saw myself working on, you know, deprogramming essentially some of those early fears and some of those mechanisms in a dog like Vincent, necessarily because you're rehearsing that behavior with Vincent, you end up rehearsing it for yourself. If I'm telling, you know, my dog whom I love and who I want to give the world to and who I want to see that the world is not a scary place that he has to fight all the time, if I'm saying all of those things or thinking all of those things or believing all of those things for him, I'm also rehearsing believing that for myself. Trying to define what home is to me is a very, very difficult question. I've navigated, you know, what home means in a lot of different ways, and I've written about it as well. I think one of the things that I really realized was how much having a dog at my side made me feel at home in the world. For me, it felt a little bit like this missing part of myself, some ancient part of myself just kind of locked in when I had a dog at my side, because you have what feels like this unshakable connection to another being in your soul. And that's why I think in the essay when I talk about, you know, the leash, that leash goes both ways. I feel like that tether between myself and Xena, between myself and Vincent, between human beings and dogs, that leash feels like it's tens of thousands of years old. I feel incredibly grateful to be part of that history.